Here we go. Good morning. Okay. Okay, good morning. So if you've been trying to join on Zoom, apologies, there's actually a different event going on in that. So sorry for the delay here. We're going to go ahead and get started on Facebook Live. So let's go ahead and find a comfortable seat, and we'll spend a few minutes just to ground ourselves for this 75-minute gentle flow class. So really looking to have a sense of ease and comfort, feel a sense of support in the body. Gentle flow is not having any sense of struggle, really having a very, in some respects, a relaxed class, even at times that you might challenge yourself a little, but still there's always a sense of ease. We never want to feel struggle. So find a comfortable seat. If you prefer to start on your back, that's always a lovely option as well. You can lay down and maybe bend the knees, rest the soles of the feet on the ground so that you can just feel a sense of ease in the low back. If you have chosen to find a comfortable seat, really be aware of the sits bones rooted down to the surface you're sitting on. Feel a sense of gravity in the pelvic region, in the entire seat, really grounded. Notice the natural lift through the spinal column. Allow the shoulder heads to fall away from the ears. Keep the head neutral on the spine, so the chin parallel with the floor, letting the skull rest just squarely and directly above the neck. Closing the eyes to bring the attention inward. Connecting with the breath. And in this instance, the idea of connecting is just observing without any need to change or modify it, without any judgment of doing it differently. Just observing and accepting what is in the present moment. Now, you may have just naturally let your hands fall wherever they will. In some instances, you may be resting them in the lap. I'm going to invite you, if that's the to bring the hands up onto the thighs if you're seated. Whether you have the palms facing up or the palms facing down. And just observe what happens here with the shoulder girdle. We're resting the palms on the thighs here rather than in the lap. There's a little more broadness and opening through the front of the body. Really observe now the breath and the effect it has on the skeletal system. Observe on the inhale how there's a lift through the barrel of the chest, an expansion of the ribcage out in multiple directions, both sides, front and back, while that upward lift is occurring. Also observing the change in the belly on the breath. On the inhale, how it expands out, almost like a balloon being blown up. And on the exhale, you notice the reversal of all of these factors. A slight recession of the entire torso, an inward, slight contraction of the barrel of the chest, and the belly starting to pull toward the back spine. The lips are very gently touching. The teeth are relaxed, not clenching them together. And the tip of the tongue very gently resting against the upper teeth. Inhaling through the nose unless there's any congestion. And as you exhale, almost feel as if you're trying to fog up a mirror. And yet, with the lips gently closed, the air is forced to go back up through the nasal passage and out the nose. If you utilize this technique, the Ujjayi breath, you'll start to notice there's a slight contraction in the back of the throat, and you'll observe a sound that's reminiscent of the ocean. And this is a really lovely breathing technique to use during a yoga asana class, the yoga physical movement. And observing that if you ever get to the point where the breath starts to change, then perhaps you're pushing beyond your natural edge. So if you can find that you maintain this rhythm and pace of breath in this class, there's a sense of ease throughout the body. Let's go ahead and bring the palms, pressing gently together and bring the thumbs in toward the heart center, Anjali Mudra. We pause for a variety of reasons. Perhaps in this moment, acknowledge yourself for making time for your practice, for your self-care. Perhaps also creating a reverence for life, for the many blessings we have. And as you allow the hands to fold back gently down to the thighs, let's just start making some small circular movements here. As we start feeling the sits bones rooting as we make small motions, bringing the torso slightly forward as you come around to the opposite side, coming back slightly. Very small, gentle movements here. Observing sensation in the body, see how you're feeling in the hips, maybe in the back, you're feeling a little awareness in the back, maybe in the knees. Remembering you can always take the legs out in front of you if the knees are feeling less than optimal. Eventually we'll start moving the opposite direction. Again, just small circular movements to begin with. Continue focusing on that Ujjayi breath, or if you choose to use a different breathing technique, then by all means feel free to do so, and just observe how the breath is entering and exiting the body. Now eventually, as we even out the approximate number of directions on each side here, we'll go back to the first side and either maintain those smaller circles or perhaps starting to lean more into it. If your palms are in your thighs, pressing through those, maybe bringing the torso through the center. The shoulders might come into play here, maybe the head a little bit. There's still a degree of, I'm apprehensive to say the word control here, but I don't want to be letting the head collapse backwards as you come toward the back. So there's a little sense of control and engagement, perhaps, can we say. So if you haven't started to do so, begin to move in the opposite direction with these larger circles. So with this gentle practice, a little different than my regular Friday hatha flow, it perhaps affords a greater opportunity to maintain that inner connection, that inner focus. Feel free to keep the eyes closed as much as you want. Beautiful. Approximately evening them out. We'll come back up to neutral here. We're just going to turn the torso to the right hand side. Bring the hands with you. Left palm on the right thigh. Right hand close into the spine behind you as it reaches to the ground. Soft gaze over the right shoulder, if that feels okay for the neck, or keep the head directly in alignment with the spine, chin over the sternum and gaze forward. Feel the seat rooted down with the crown of the head gently reaching upward. As we lift the arms slightly off the ground, we're just going to bring ourselves around to the opposite side and place them back down. Right hand on the left thigh, left hand behind the spine. Observing the breath. Following the next exhale, let's bring ourselves back around to the first side. We're just bringing the hands near the ground over across to the opposite side. And we'll come a second time to the left side again, bring the torso around, bring the arms over, right arm on the left side, left hand on the floor close behind. A few more breaths here as you gently gaze over the left shoulder. And we'll go ahead and bring the torso back to center. Now, if you're sitting flat on the floor, fine, or perhaps on a block, you'll notice your sits bones are rooted down here. We're going to start to come into a forward fold. We want to hinge at the hips. So we bring the hands just in front of us. Now, as we do this and start to hinge at the hips and lead with the sternum, elongate the spine, your sits might rise up off the floor or block if you're sitting on it. That's certainly fine. We're rocking forward a little onto the shins and knees and bringing the forehead down in the direction of the mat. Perhaps it reaches, perhaps it doesn't, that's fine. You can also rest the forehead on stacked fists. So there's different variations of what we're doing right now. It's fine to walk forward on the pelvis. In some instances, we focus on keeping the sits bones glued down, even if that means we remain higher up. But right now, we want to feel that sense of elongating the spinal column forward. And also really feeling perhaps awareness in the inner hip joint here. And of course, we each have individual anatomical structure and physiology, so you may feel things in different places than me and then any others participating as well. Okay, we'll begin to bring ourselves back up. You can walk on spider tip fingers. As you feel the sits bones rooted down again on whatever surface you're sitting on, taking the hands behind you and press through the hands to give additional lift through the spinal column. And now slightly arch the upper back, lift the sternum to the ceiling, keeping again a little bit of activation in the neck so you don't let it collapse backwards, and gazing up toward the ceiling. Really working the shoulders gently here as you press through the hands, lift the sternum, and we'll come back to center. Beautiful. Let's go ahead and breathe the arms out to the side, palms face up, and bring the arms up overhead toward one another as fingertips touch. Reach and extend. And rotating at the shoulders now, palms facing up, begin to exhale to bring the arms back down toward the ground, fingertips coming near the mat. And on the inhale, rotate the palms to face up. Inhale the arms overhead, so you're really rotating at the ball and socket joint of the shoulder. Fingertips touch on the exhale. Spread the arms as the fingertips reach to the side wall. Palms face down on the exhale to bring the hands down to the floor again. Again, rotated at the shoulder. Inhale the arms overhead, palms facing up. You're flowing with the rhythm of your breath now. Really beautiful, soft, gentle, fluid motion here. And the next time the hands arrive down to the ground, keep the right fingertips touching the ground. Rotate the left arm to face up. And now press the right palm on the ground as you start to raise the left arm and coming towards C curve here. We want to prevent, in this case, the left sit bone lifting. So keep it rooted down. Slight C curve here. Option to gently move the head side to side, or just keep it neutral, looking directly forward. As we exhale, we'll inhale ourselves up right here. We're going to windmill the arms through center as you start to take the left palm down to the ground and reach and extend the right arm up and then over toward the left hand side. Keep that right sit bone really glued down here. If you do notice it start to lift, just bring it back and root it down, even if it brings the torso higher up. Again, an option to gently move the head side to side. Beautiful. And as you inhale the torso upright, you can keep the left arm on the ground, bring the right hand down to the ground. So we're going to go ahead and prepare to come down onto our backs now. You can go ahead and remove a bolster or block if you were sitting on one. And as you come down onto the back, laying straight down on the ground, keep the knees bent, soles of the feet flat on the ground here to start. You can go ahead and just rest the arms alongside the body. And just starting to move the knees side to side here. So the feet can still remain about hip width apart at this point. We're just doing a little bit of warming up in the hips here. So the legs aren't coming very far over nor very far down. They're not coming right to the ground at this point. Noticing the low back lifting here, a little bit of a lateral stretch through the side when you drop the knees, the opposite side. Beautiful. So you come back to neutral on your back. Now take the soles of the feet to the outside edges of the mat. And now as you windshield wiper, you might notice the legs drop a little bit further over. Maybe not coming all the way down here, but the knee comes a little bit toward the instep of the opposite foot as we now have the legs wider apart. And if it feels okay, you can start to turn the gaze to look over the opposite shoulder from which direction the knees are fallen. And as you come back to center, resting on the back, now we're going to bring the soles of our feet together. This is reclined cobbler pose or butterfly pose. As the soles of the feet press together, it creates a diamond shape with the legs and knees splaying out to the side. A little bit of a hip opener here. And for some people this might be intense. If it really feels like strong sensation, like more than feels comfortable, it's, can you say, screaming at you a little bit, then just raise the knees a bit higher up. It's one option. And another option is to take the heels further away from your perineum. So you could move the heels further away. That might feel a little bit of relief in the hips. And of course, if your hips feel very open today, you can feel free to bring the heels closer in toward the perineum. Let's feel the backs of the shoulders, the shoulder blades, scapula, perhaps resting into the ground, the back of the head, back of the arms. Just relaxing here. If the sensation starts to raise to a large degree in the hips and it's too much, then just bringing the knees higher up. And we'll all go ahead and raise the knees up up toward one another to touch. Now we're going to bring our hips a few inches over to the side. So with the arms alongside you here, feet are flat on the ground with the knees bent. We're going to press through the feet just to lift the hips and move them about 3 or 4 inches over to the left-hand side and then place them back down. Now take your arms out in a T formation. Begin to drop the knees over to the left-hand side. They might reach the ground, or perhaps they don't. That's fine if they don't. They'll just hover in the air a little bit. Maybe turn the gaze over to the right-hand side. If your knees, if your body and anatomical structure allows that your knees fully reach the floor, you can then start to take the knees in the direction of the wall behind your head. Behind the crown of your head. So you would move the knees behind, or can we say above the crown of your head, to the wall behind the crown of your head. This is only if the knees reach the ground. If your knees don't quite reach the ground, just let them hover in space. If you are gazing over the opposite shoulder, bring the head back to center. We're going to raise the knees back up, soles of the feet flat on the ground, and press through the feet, bring the torso back to center. Now, as you press through the feet, take the hips, raise them a few inches, take them over to the right-hand side, lower them back down to the ground, and with the knees pressing together, start to lower the knees to the right-hand side and turn the gaze over the left shoulder. So again, if the knees are floating, just maintain them here. In the event your knees reach the ground, you can give a little bit deeper lateral stretch here to take the knees in the direction of the wall above the crown of your head. Observing that ujjayi breath, if you're still practicing that, notice that lovely sound, almost like the ocean here. That slight contraction in the back of the throat. Bring the gaze back to center, head back on the crown of the back of the skull. Bring the knees back up and bring the torso back to midline. Let's go ahead and take the legs directly out in front of us, straighten them. And now bring the arms along the ground overhead, reaching in the direction of that wall above the crown of the head. And a long stretch here. Really reach and extend the fingertips toward the wall above the crown of the head and the feet toward the wall in front of the soles. And now we're going to take a little bit of a lateral stretch here. So we're going to take the legs a little bit over toward the left-hand side. So move them about 6 or 8 inches off the left-hand side of the mat. And there's an option to take the right leg and cross it over top of the left if you want a little additional sensation through the right-hand side of the body. And then reach, take the left palm around the right wrist and reach the arms over toward the left-hand side. So we're getting a beautiful opening in the right-hand side of the body, right all the way along the side of the leg, through the hip flexor, along the barrel of the chest, up to the shoulder girdle. Reach, gently pulling the right arm with the left palm. And we'll bring the arms back to center. Go ahead and uncross the legs, bring them back to center. Now take the legs 6 or 8 inches off to the right-hand side. option to cross that left leg over top of the right. And as you take the right wrist around the right palm around the left wrist, you can bring those arms slightly over toward the right hand side. Again, feeling that beautiful, it's almost like a crescent moon type shape. We do sometimes in standing a crescent moon, sort of looking for that sensation as well in the side body lateral stretch. And uncrossing, letting the wrist go, bring the arms back to center, uncross the ankles, and bring the legs back to midline. So we can bring the arms alongside the body just to turn over onto the right hand side. Now take the right arm and stretch it out up ahead so that you're able to rest the right ear on the inside of the right arm, upper arm, kind of like a pillow here. You're resting on the right hip. We're going to then bend the left knee at about a 90-degree angle to start, and now bring the back of the left heel toward the left buttock. Now for some people it might not quite reach, but if it's available to you, you can go ahead and grab the left palm, place it around the left foot, maybe around the left ankle, and noticing a beautiful stretch in the front of the left quadricep here. If the hand doesn't quite reach the foot, just keep imagining you're bringing the left heel toward the direction of the left buttock. If you've grabbed the foot, go ahead and release it, straighten the leg out. We're going to take the left arm and bring it alongside the left ear. And now as we prepare to move to the opposite side, we're going to roll onto our abdomen, and then you might come right off your mat, that's fine, and then you can realign yourself to come back onto your mat and rolling onto the left hand side, this time resting the left ear on the inside of the left upper arm. And then we'll bend the right leg, bring the right heel toward the right buttock, and reach the arm in the direction. Perhaps it reaches. If it doesn't, just hold the leg there as you bring the right heel toward the right buttock. And if it reaches, you can bring it even more close by either grasping the foot or ankle and bringing the heel toward the right buttock. And as you release the foot, if you've got a hold of it, straighten the leg out again, taking the right arm up in front of you, and then rolling back onto the abdomen. And we'll press through the palms as we bring ourselves up through tabletop and back to child's pose. So sink the buttocks back to the heels, resting the forehead on the ground if it reaches, or on stacked fists or palms, or perhaps a block. And remember, alternate resting pose, always an option here. If child's pose isn't available to you for some reason, then you would keep the hips directly above the knees, resting the forehead down toward the ground. So we'll rest here for a few breaths in child's pose. See if you can connect with that ujjayi sound, ocean sounding breath here. of this, and we're moving back down onto our abdomen. So we're going to walk the legs up behind us, lowering the pelvis down to the ground. We're going to come toward Sphinx pose. So in Sphinx pose, you want to have the upper arm perpendicular to the ground. So the shoulder directly above the elbow. The forearms are going directly forward, pressing into the ground, and the palms as well pressing in the ground. The middle finger going directly forward. So we're going to keep pressing down through the pelvis, the tops of the legs, and the shoelaces of the feet as the feet splay outward slightly. And we'll lift the upper trunk up and elongating the spine, extending the spinal column upward and forward here, gazing directly forward. We're relaxing the shoulder heads away from the ears as we elongate the neck as well, and keep pressing down through the pelvis. Sphinx pose, so lovely light back bend for our gentle practice. And we'll begin to lower the forehead down to the mat. The next time we prepare to come up for Sphinx pose, you can either remain there with the forearms on the ground, or if you want a little bit higher lift through the torso, so we'll come back up towards Sphinx pose, forearms on the ground. And the other option is to walk the hands, take the forearms off the ground, keep pressing the pelvis down, elongate the spinal column upward. So it's supported up dog. Really important here to elongate the spinal column forward. If you certainly don't want to feel any crunching in the low back, if you notice any sort of contraction or constriction there, then lower yourself down to allow that elongation forward. You really want to keep elongating the spinal column. And if you have raised up, lower the forearms back down and lower the forehead to the mat. And as you press through the palms, we're going to lift ourselves up to a tabletop position. So hips directly above the knees, shoulders directly above the wrists, neutral spine, gaze down to the mat, crown of the head reaching forward. And we'll move through some cat and cow poses here. So with the breath sequence, we exhale to come to cat pose. Arch the back high, lift through the palms, tuck the chin to the chest. Inhale, rock the pelvis back as you take the chin off the chest, soften the belly, crown of the head up toward the ceiling. Exhale, coming to cat pose. You can still maintain that Ujjayi breath if you're utilizing that. Inhale, back to cow pose. Few more cycles. So we exhale to cat and inhale to cow pose. Beautiful, feeling that undulation of the spinal column, that shifting of the pelvis on the inhale and exhale. And eventually coming back to neutral tabletop position. So we're going to walk the hands off the right side of the mat. The left hand might remain on the mat as the right hand comes off the mat, and arch the torso as you gaze over the right shoulder toward the direction of the right hip. A little bit of a C-curve here again on beautiful lateral stretch to the left side of the body. As we bring the head back to center, walking the hands back to midline. And then we'll walk the hands off the left-hand side of the mat And again, turn the gaze over the shoulder look toward the hip on that side. This time the left side. Beautiful. And we're going to come back toward center with the head and then walk the hands back to center. Now we're going to take the right palm and place it directly under the face in between the middle of the mat. And we're going to open the left arm and shoulder out to the side and take the left arm, bend it at the elbow, rest the palm on the small of the back. So we're gazing a little bit toward the wall on the left, or maybe a little toward where the wall meets the ceiling. We'll bring the head back to center, lower the hand down, replace it to the center of the mat. And this time as you open the right arm out to the right hand side, again, place the palm on the low of the back. And always remembering to listen to your body if it feels better, rather than looking up toward near where the wall meets the ceiling. Just keep the head looking down toward the ground. You really want a sense of ease and comfort in the neck. We'll go ahead and bring the head back to center, lower the arm down, and this time as we again replace the right hand back to the center, we're going to see if we can raise the left arm up toward the ceiling with it straight on an inhale. On an exhale, sliding the arm back down toward the ground. And again, this time open, inhale, the arm up overhead, fingertips toward the ceiling. Exhale, the hand back down toward the mat. One more time, inhale the arm up overhead and back down toward the mat. So we'll swap the hand out, left hand on the center of the mat, taking the right arm out to the side, inhale it up overhead, and straighten the arm, bringing the fingertips right up to the ceiling, and bringing it back down to the mat. Again, an inhale to take the arm up overhead toward the ceiling, and bringing it back down to the mat. Third time, inhale the arm up overhead, and back down toward the mat. Go ahead and replace that right hand to the center of the mat again. Now this time as you open the left arm up overhead, as you bring it back down to the mat, bring the back side of the left arm and slide it between the opening between the right hand and the legs, the back of the arm across the mat. So we'll do this 3 times here. So inhale the arm up overhead, and on the exhales you bring it down. You take the back of the arm through the middle between the hands and the legs across the mat, off the right hand side of the mat. Inhale it up overhead once more, and again bringing it right through there. If it's available to you, you bring the side of the left head toward the mat, but more importantly the left shoulder mound toward the mat. This is a revolved child's pose. As you have the right palm pressing down into the mat, the elbows bent at a 90-degree angle. Revolved child. Really want to be cautious and gentle with the neck here. No movement once you've got weight bearing on the head, other than perhaps a slight tucking of the chin toward the chest if that feels okay for you. Pressing through the palm, lifting ourselves off any weight on the head to raise back up, bring the left arm up overhead again, and back down to center. We're going to repeat this on the opposite side as you bring the left arm to center. Raise the right arm up overhead toward the ceiling. As you lower it back down across the mat. Inhale the right arm up overhead. Do this 3 times. Here's the second time. Exhale. Lower it down. Bring the back of the right arm between the left hand and the legs. Inhale the right arm up overhead. And this time as you bring it through the middle,
Back of the arm resting on the ground. Now again, bring the right shoulder to the ground, the side of the right head, pressing through the left palm, bent at a 90-degree angle. Revolve child's pose. Some traditions refer to this as threading the needle. So the exit is press through the left palm, lift the head off the mat. Inhale the right arm up as you straighten the left arm too. Bring the right arm up overhead and back down to the mat. And we'll go ahead and come to child's pose or alternate resting pose as you sink the buttocks back and lower the forehead down to the mat or onto those stacked hands. And as we exit that, we'll come back to child's pose, to tabletop position. We're going to prepare to come towards standing. So you can go ahead and lift your torso just up onto tucked toes if this feels okay for you. For some, this might feel excruciating, in which case just go ahead and move towards standing. But if it's available to you, spreading the toes wide, the heels are lifted high off the mat now. So there's a little bit of engagement in the feet, stretching the front side of the feet and the toes here. And as we prepare to come towards standing, begin to straighten the legs and unfurling the vertebra one at a time as you rise up towards standing. Beautiful. So we're going to use a little bit of breath work here with the arms. So pranayama is one of breath work, vital life force, is one of the 8 limbs of classical yoga mentioned in the Yoga Sutras. So I know that we often think of the physical movements as yoga, but that's one of 8 limbs. So this breath work practice we're going to do now is just going to be with taking the arms up and over. So it's like a sun salutation with the arms. So on an inhale, we're going to circle the arms around, palms face up, bringing the fingertips up overhead toward one another. And then we'll bring the hands back down to heart center. So again, take the arms down to the side, face the fingertips out, palms out, and raise the arms overhead and down to heart center. A few more times now. A little bit of breath work here. Really connecting with the breath. Keep rooting through the 4 corners of each foot. Feel some activation in the legs. Hug the muscles to the bone. 3 more times. And last time, circle the arms. Really reach and extend them, fingertips up overhead and hands down to heart center. So as we come to feel rooted in the 4 corners of our feet, we're going to come to a standing balance pose, tree pose here. So as you root down through the 4 corners of the right foot, you can lift onto the tip toes of the left foot. It's really important to keep an activation in the standing leg. We always keep a micro bend here. We want to prevent locking out the joint, particularly if you have hyperflexive joints. You want to make sure you have a micro bend. It's almost imperceptible. So tiptoes of the left foot. And now open the left hip out to the side. So the left heel is just above the right ankle. And you can really feel the adduction of pressing the left heel into the right leg and press the right leg back into the left heel. You'll notice that causes engagement in the hip flexors here. You might prefer to take a variation of this and bring the foot off the ground and rest the sole of the foot on the left calf. That's an option as well. And again, you still maintain that adduction inward here.
And then let the hands come to heart center, Anjali Mudra. Perfectly fine if the foot is on the ground here as you would press the heel into the leg and the leg into the heel. And we find a drishti gaze, so non-moving focal point we can put our awareness on. If your toes are on the ground, see if you can challenge yourself a little bit here. Just raise them an inch off the ground. If it's available to you, if not, that's fine. And remember, you're always free to go to the wall to do this. If you feel more comfortable standing next to a wall, you can rest one arm on a wall, the right hand on the wall in this case. So we'll allow the hands to come back down to the side body, release the leg, and move it in any way that feels like it brings a sense of ease and release. Maybe that's shaking out the standing leg hip. We'll prepare to go to the opposite side as you root down through the four corners of the left foot. Come on the tiptoes of the right foot, and now open that hip out to the side toward a 90-degree angle. So you really want to keep the hip open broadly here. Once again, pressing the heel into the leg just above the ankle, and the leg back into the heel. And option for variations, for example, bringing the sole of the right foot onto the calf. There's another variation as well to bring it above the knee and onto the inner thigh. But we always want to prevent having any weight bearing on the inside of the knee joint. So if you choose to raise the foot off the ground, either on the calf or the inner thigh. Again, keeping that activated adduction to feel the hip flexors here. And the hands now coming to the heart center at Anjali Mudra. Again, with that non-moving focal point, just to allow the concentration to have a space that you can gently gaze, a soft, gentle gaze. Once more, allow the hands to be released, release the leg, and shake it out a little bit. Beautiful. So we'll come to a brief warrior sequence here. So from the front of your mat, as you root down through your right foot, we'll take the left leg back behind us, turning it out at a 45-degree angle. So for most of us, the forward heel intersects approximately to the instep of the back foot. But feel free to take the feet wider apart if you find that's better for your stability. Ensuring that the right knee doesn't come ahead of the right ankle. Keeping the torso perpendicular and upright to the floor. And inhale the arms out at shoulder height. Reach the fingertips in opposite directions here. And then turn the gaze over the forward middle fingertips. So we envision the crown of the head is gently lifting toward the ceiling. There's actually more weight on the outer edge of the back foot than in the front foot. And we also want to make sure in the front foot, we're not crunching into the toes. So technically you could have a quick lift of the toes, rooting squarely through the four corners of the foot to make sure that you're not crunching into the toes here. Let's go ahead and rotate that forward palm, raise that arm overhead and drop the back palm onto the back thigh. Exalted warrior. So there's this option to do it with the knee still bent. And for some, you might like to go ahead and straighten that front leg. The gaze can either be directly forward and parallel to the floor or turn it up toward the raised hand, if that feels okay for your stability. And we'll bring the arms back down to shoulder height. And straighten that right leg, turn the right foot to the long edge of the mat, and let's heel toe the feet together toward the center of the mat. And we'll come back toward the front of the mat in mountain pose. On the opposite side now, root down through the four corners of the left foot, take the right leg back behind you, turn it out at a 45-degree angle. Make sure that forward knee doesn't come ahead of the forward ankle. If it does, you need to take maybe that back foot further back to ensure it's either directly above, or it could also be slightly behind. Optimally, you keep this shin bone perpendicular to the floor. Keep the torso perpendicular to the floor. Inhale the arms out at shoulder height and turn the gaze over the forward hand, looking over the forward middle finger. Again, that soft, gentle gaze. Crown of the head reaches up to the ceiling, more weight on the outer edge of the back foot. Reach and extend the arms in opposite direction. Continue to focus on the breath here, maybe the Ujjayi breath. Exalted warrior, rotate the forward palm, raise the arm overhead, drop the back palm under the back thigh. Again, either keeping that forward leg bent, or option to straighten it, option to look forward, or up toward the raised hand. If the leg is straight, go ahead and bend it. Bring the arms back to shoulder height, warrior two. Go ahead and straighten that forward leg once again. Pivot the foot to face forward to the long edge of the mat. Let the arms come down and we'll heel toe the feet in toward the center, standing. Beautiful. And we're going to come to chair pose now. So Utkatasana is the Sanskrit word. So keep the feet hip width apart. We're going to begin to sink the buttocks back slightly, and we want to keep a neutrality in the spine, so neither curving nor arching the back. Neutrality in the spine as we start to lower the buttocks, sits bones down toward the ground but further back. Now we want to have a quick glance over the knees and make sure we can see our toes. If your knees are so far forward they're occluding the vision of the toes, take the buttocks further back. If it's too much sensation, too difficult in the legs, then lift higher up and make sure you can see your toes. Inhale the arms out in front of you at shoulder height. And lifting out of that, lowering the hands back down to the side. So we're going to make our way back down to the mat and coming on to our backs. So find your way down to the mat in any way that you need to. And coming in again back down onto the mat as you lay on your back, soles of the feet again flat on the ground with the knees bent. The arms are alongside the body, the palms are facing down. Fingertips going in the direction of the heels. And you can actually scooch the buttocks a little further, the sacrum, entire torso, a little further forward so that it comes closer. It's not essential the fingertips reach the heels, but moving in that direction. Rock the pelvis a couple of times in the opposite direction. So as you rock it away from the direction of the head, notice this curvature in the back of the spine. Rock the pelvis toward the wall behind the crown of the head. Notice the spinal column is fully flush, the low back sacrum is spreading wide. Once more, rock it away and observe how that shifts the low back here. And rock it in the direction of the head, the wall behind the crown of the head. Now in this direction with the low backs fully flush with the mat, spreading broadly, arms alongside here, pressing through the feet, pressing through the upper shoulders and upper back.
Begin to lift the hips and buttocks off the mat and up toward the ceiling. Coming into a bridge pose here. Now you want to lift the hips high and also feel as if you're slightly taking them in the direction of the wall in front of the legs. This creates a long line through the front of the body, softening the belly. We're not looking for any sort of abdominal clenching here. There's activation in the buttocks and hip flexors without clenching the butt cheeks. Lift the pelvis and hips higher up toward the ceiling. Root through the feet. Make sure that there's no excess pressure on the back of the head, and don't ever look to the side when there's even an ounce of pressure on the back of the head. If you need to look, you come out of the pose, remove any pressure from the back of the head before looking by turning the head. As you begin to slowly bring the buttocks back to the ground, unfurling one vertebra at a time. Once the sacrum reaches the ground, let the soles of the feet come off the ground and bringing the knees in toward the chest. And maybe gentle rocking side to side here. And as you release the knees, let the feet come back down to the ground. So we're going to prepare to move toward final resting pose, Shavasana here. So you're welcome to either keep the knees bent to take or give a greater sense of relaxation in the low back here, or the traditional method to take the legs out in front of you. This does cause a little bit of curve in the low back. Let the legs splay out to the side and the arms alongside the body. If you need to, take a moment to grab an article of clothing, maybe put some socks on or another layer, a sweater or something, so that you can feel a complete sense of ease and relaxation here. You don't want to feel distracted by a draft. As we come to our final resting pose, we really want to allow an opportunity for our parasympathetic nervous system to take precedence here. This is that opportunity, that rest and digest. So we just scan the awareness through the body and make sure that there's not any area that you might be holding or gripping or clenching. If there's any area that you can invite a greater sense of relaxation and rest, a greater sense of letting go. You really want to feel a sense of collapsing into the mat, sinking into the mat, a heaviness in the body, almost like the bones were lead weights, just really weighing you down. You can allow the breath pace just to return to its natural. If you've been utilizing Ujjayi breath here, just allow that natural flow of your breath now. And then even allowing the tongue to relax. So in the Ujjayi, we gently rest the tongue near the upper teeth, but now let the tongue fully relax. Let the jaw relax. The eyes, let the eyes relax. The eyelids, if there's any tendency to be holding them or clenching them, just let them relax. The micro muscles around the eyeball that control the movement of the eyeball, just see if they're engaged in any way and let it relax. focusing the awareness on the third eye. So that space in between the two eyebrows. Now, into the skull, 2 or 3 inches, we are near the areas responsible for parasympathetic nervous system, the pineal gland, pituitary gland, the hippocampus. But see if you can bring your focused awareness between the two eyebrows, maybe 3 or 4 inches in front of your head, in front of the third eye. Just focusing the attention and awareness here for another minute of full relaxation. Ever so gently begin to lengthen the breath. It's bringing some deeper sense of starting now to gently awaken the body, making some small movements and maybe wiggling the fingers and toes. Maybe rotate the wrists and ankles. And just spending a moment to move in any way that your body is asking, any type of movement that brings a sense of ease and yet at the same time a sense of vitality and reawakening. Finally, hugging the knees in toward the chest. And a gentle rocking side to side. Before landing on the right hand side in a fetal position, really feeling supported and nurtured and really connected with this planet. As you stretch out the upper leg and press into the upper arm to bring yourself to an upright position, find a comfortable seat.
Go ahead and bring the palms pressing gently together, bringing the thumbs toward the sternum and heart center. Once again, take a moment to acknowledge yourself for making time for your practice. With the hands at the altar of the heart, may your heart feel filled with love and compassion, with kindness and grace and gratitude for the many blessings in our lives. The light in me acknowledges and bows to the light in you. Jagat and Namaste. Thank you for joining me today. I'll see you each Monday for Gentle Flow, and Fridays, same time, 9:30 Pacific time, that's UTC -8, for Hatha Flow. So if you're available to join then, I welcome you. Otherwise, you can also check these at any time. They'll be uploaded to the Yoga by the Sea YouTube channel. You can follow along at your convenience. So have a blessed day, be safe, stay well. See you again.